Hey there, travelers. Before we dive into today's story, drop a comment below telling us where you're tuning in from. Now let's begin our journey into the unknown. The morphine stopped working 2 hours ago. They don't know that yet. The two men standing at the foot of my hospital bed, clutching their tablets and their classified clearances. They think I'm comfortable. They think the drugs are doing their job, keeping Sergeant Harvey Gudson calm and compliant while they extract every detail of what went wrong in the Alborz Mountains. They're wrong about a lot of things. My left leg is screaming. Not the dull ache of phantom limb syndrome they warned me about during the pre-mission medical briefing, but genuine fire. Nerves that no longer connect to anything are sending distress signals my brain can't ignore. The leg ends mid-thigh now, wrapped in bandages that smell like antiseptic, and something underneath. Rot, maybe, or just the memory of what I lost in that facility. My right arm stops just below the elbow. Sometimes I forget. I'll try to reach for the water cup on the side table and watch my shoulder move, watch muscles contract, and then remember there's nothing there to complete the action. The fluorescent lights above my bed hum with a frequency that makes my teeth hurt. Everything in this room is white. White walls, white sheets, white coats on the doctors who check my vitals every 4 hours and won't meet my eyes. It's the kind of white that's meant to be clean, sterile, safe. But all I can see is red. All I can smell is copper and cordite and the particular stench of a vampire burning from the inside out when its collar activates. Sergeant Gudson. The older man speaks first. He hasn't introduced himself, but I know his type. Late 50s. Silver haircut, military short. Suit that costs more than my annual salary. No name tag, no insignia. Just a security badge clipped to his breast pocket with a clearance level I'm not supposed to know exists. I've started calling him Tipper in my head, though I have no idea if that's his real name. He looks like a tipper. We need you to walk us through the operation again, from the beginning. I've already told the first team. My voice comes out rougher than I expect. They had me intubated for 18 hours after the medevac. Something about my lung collapsing. Something about the amount of blood I'd lost. Told them everything, twice. Tell us again. The younger one steps forward. He's maybe late 30s, athletic build, jaw so square it could have been carved from the same granite as Mount Rushmore. His eyes are the color of old ice, and about as warm. I've decided to call him Agent Stone. Fits the aesthetic. He's holding a tablet, fingers poised over the screen. Start with insertion. We're 200 hours, correct? I want to tell them both to go to hell. I want to rip out the IV line pumping saline and antibiotics into my arm and walk out of this room. But I can't walk. I'll never walk again. Not without prosthetics and physical therapy, and probably a decade of nightmares about why I need them in the first place. So, I close my eyes instead. Behind my eyelids, I can still see it. Not the hospital room. Not the white walls and the men with their questions. I see the valley. I see the insertion point. I see Victor's face in the moonlight, pale and ancient and afraid. We inserted at 200 hours, I begin. 15 clicks northeast of the target coordinates. Chinook dropped us at the LZ. Nothing fancy, just an open stretch of rock and scrub brush in the middle of nowhere. Pilot didn't even touch down. We fast-roped into hostile territory with 80 pounds of gear each in 8 hours to complete the mission before sunrise, made exfil impossible. 8-man team, I continue. 4 human. 4 other. Tipper doesn't blink. Designated assets. Pets. The word comes out flat. Hard. That's what we called them. That's what everyone in Black Salomon calls them. Don't pretend otherwise. Agent Stone makes a note on his tablet. His expression doesn't change. These men have been trained not to react, not to show weakness or surprise or humanity. They're bureaucrats with guns and clearances that go all the way to the top. They know what we are, what we do, what we work with. They just don't want to say it out loud. Team composition, Stone says. Elaborate. I take a breath. It hurts. Everything hurts. The morphine was supposed to help with that. But pain is funny. After a certain threshold, drugs just become background noise. The agony keeps broadcasting regardless. Captain Sarah Barden led the operation, I say. 34 years old. 6 years with Black Salomon. Before that, she was CIA Special Activities Division. Sarah was the kind of officer who could watch a man die and then finish her coffee without blinking. Not cruel, just practical. Detached. She'd run 17 missions with asset integration. Never lost a human operator. Didn't care much about losing the others. I can still see her face in the green glow of night vision. Sharp features. Hair pulled back so tight it must have given her headaches. She never complained, never showed weakness. Captain Sarah Barden was a machine wrapped in human skin, and she was very, very good at her job. She briefed us 3 days before insertion, I continue. Said the target was a uranium enrichment facility, off books, buried in the mountains southeast of Tehran. Intel suggested maybe 20 personnel, scientists, security, maintenance, light resistance. Our job was simple. Get in, confirm the enrichment operation, plant demo charges, get out. Let the politicians decide what to do with the evidence. Simple, Tipper repeats. Yeah. I open my eyes. Simple. Agent Stone is watching me. Continue with team composition. Lieutenant Travis Strong, sniper, 41 years old. Best shooter I've ever worked with, and I've worked with plenty. Travis came up through Marine Scout Sniper before the program recruited him in 2019. He'd been running Black Salomon operations since Afghanistan, back when they first started experimenting with asset integration in combat zones. Travis was wiry, all lean muscle and nervous energy. He didn't sleep much. Said he didn't like what he saw when he closed his eyes. I understood that better now than I did 3 days ago. Travis didn't trust the pets, I say. But he respected what they could do. Professional distance, he called it. Treat them like weapons, not soldiers. Don't name them. Don't bond with them. Just point them at the enemy and let them do what they're built for. Sound doctrine? Tipper says. Maybe. Didn't save him. I can feel my heart rate increasing. The monitor beside my bed starts beeping faster. Agent Stone glances at it, then back at me. Corporal Devin Harkonnen. 23 years old, explosives specialist. Kid was fresh out of the program. This was only his 4th mission with asset integration. Devin had believed in what we were doing. Really believed. He thought we were protecting America from threats most people couldn't imagine. Monsters in the dark. Things that fed on human blood. He thought we were heroes. Devin was good at his job, I say quietly. Knew his way around C4 and Datecord better than anyone I'd trained with. But he was young. Idealistic. He'd look at Victor and Valya and see soldiers, not weapons. Sarah used to chew him out for it. Said emotional attachment to assets was a liability. It is, Tipper says. Then why do you look so worried about what I'm going to tell you? Tipper's jaw tightens, but he doesn't answer. Agent Stone taps his tablet. And the assets. Start with the hemovariants. Hemovariants. The clinical term. The designation that let bureaucrats sleep at night. Like calling them vampires would somehow make it more real, more terrible, more unforgivable. Victor and Valya, I say. Their names taste strange in my mouth. I'd said them so rarely, and now they're all I can think about. Designated hemovariants, recruited from an isolated community in West Virginia, though their accents said they were older than America. Victor was the primary asset, 347 years old, according to his file. Turned during the Russian Empire. He'd survived the Napoleonic Wars, 2 world wars, the Cold War. Watched nations rise and fall. Watched technology evolve from muskets to nuclear weapons. I can still see Victor's eyes. Pale gray, like winter sky. Ancient. Tired. He'd seen too much, lived too long. There was a weight to him that had nothing to do with physical presence. He didn't talk much, I continue. Not to us, anyway. But I'd catch him and Valya whispering sometimes. Always in Russian. Always with their heads close together. Like they were sharing secrets the rest of us weren't meant to hear. She was younger. Maybe 150 years. Turned during the Soviet era. Small, fast, brutal when she needed to be. Psychological profiles indicated optimal performance in covert operations, Agent Stone says, reading from his tablet. Their psychological profiles didn't mention fear. I shift in the bed. Fresh agony lances through the stump of my leg. That night, walking toward the facility, Victor was afraid. I'd never seen that before. 7 missions together, and he'd never shown fear. Not in Detroit when we cleared that feral nest. Not in Alaska when we tracked the rogue lichen pack through a blizzard. But that night, he kept looking at Valya. They were communicating without words. Something was very, very wrong. Tipper leans forward slightly. The Hemivariants filed no formal concerns. Because they knew you wouldn't listen. Because they wore collars that would decapitate them if they stepped out of line. Because they weren't soldiers to you. They were weapons. And weapons don't get to have opinions. The collar system. UV laser emitters wired to pressure sensors against the second and third cervical vertebrae. Controlled by a remote carried by the human team leader. One aggressive move toward Allied personnel, one moment of lost control, and the laser would fire. 300 watts of concentrated ultraviolet energy, severing the spinal cord and burning through tissue in a fraction of a second. I'd watched it happen once, during a training exercise. Vampire named Constantine, pulled from a nest in Oregon. He'd grabbed a technician who startled him during a blood draw. Reflexive action, no malice. The collar activated before anyone could react. Constantine's head hit the floor, still trying to form words. His body stood for another 3 seconds before collapsing. The system worked exactly as designed. Victor and Valya were good at their jobs, I say. They moved through night operations like they were part of it. Enhanced senses, enhanced strength, near-perfect vision in total blackness. They could hear a heartbeat from 50 yards out, track a target by scent alone. In urban environments, they were invaluable. No thermal signature, no need for oxygen. They could infiltrate spaces human operators couldn't touch. And the lichens, Agent Stone prompts. Jimmy and Dio. I can still hear Jimmy's laugh. Sharp, mean, carrying across the valley. Designated lycanthropes. Jimmy was turned in 2021, recruited straight from Army Rangers. He volunteered for the program, said he wanted to serve his country, and if becoming a lichen made him more effective, then that's what he'd do. Patriotism with fangs. Jimmy had been handsome once. Strong jaw, bright eyes, smile that probably charmed his way through countless bars back stateside. The transformation hadn't taken that away. Not completely. But there was something else now. Something predatory. Even in human form, even just sitting around camp, Jimmy looked like he was deciding which of us would taste best. He thought he was better than the vampires, I continue. Better than us too, maybe. The lichens didn't wear collars, didn't need the same level of control. During the full moon, yeah, they'd lose themselves completely. Pure instinct, pure violence. But the rest of the month? They considered themselves soldiers, American soldiers. They'd salute the flag and call each other brother and pretend the thing living inside them was just another piece of equipment. Dio was different. British accent, former SAS before MI6 recruited him into their equivalent program. They loaned him to Black Salomon for operational integration testing. He was quieter than Jimmy, more controlled. He didn't hate the vampires, he just didn't consider them equals. Tools, maybe. Assets to be deployed. But Victor and Valya wore collars, and that made all the difference. Tipper shifts his weight. The lichens demonstrated superior battlefield performance in preliminary testing. They were strong, I agree. Enhanced strength, enhanced healing, enhanced senses. Even in human form, Dio could have torn through a reinforced door. During the full moon, they became something else entirely. Unstoppable, mindless, perfect weapons if you could point them in the right direction and get out of the way. But that night, I continue, we were 2 weeks out from the lunar cycle. They were manageable, controllable. Dio and Jimmy ranged ahead of our formation as forward scouts. They could smell threats we couldn't detect, hear movements we'd miss. And if something jumped us, they'd hit first and hit hard. Agent Stone makes another note. Insertion proceeded according to plan? Yeah, for about 15 minutes. The Chinook had dropped us at the edge of a valley, rotors beating the air into submission before pulling away and leaving us alone in hostile territory. The silence afterward was profound. No city sounds, no traffic. Just wind moving through rocks and the distant, irregular sounds of the mountains settling. Sarah had assembled us into formation without speaking. Hand signals only. Travis took point with his rifle, scanning through his scope. Devin and I followed at interval. The pets flanked us. Victor and Valya melting into the spaces between boulders on our left, Jimmy and Dio ranging ahead on the right. We moved through the valley in tactical formation, I tell Tipper and Stone. Standard protocols for hostile territory. Every 50 meters, we'd halt. Travis would scan with thermal. Victor would disappear and return with hand signals. Clear. 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 The terrain was brutal. Loose rock that shifted underfoot. Slopes that tried to twist ankles. Wind that carried our scent ahead of us and brought back nothing. We moved slowly, deliberately. Professional. The temperature was dropping, I say. Must have been close to freezing, even though it was late summer. I remember thinking that was strange. Mountain cold, yeah. But this felt different, deeper. Like the valley itself was drawing heat away from us. 3 clicks from the target. Victor stopped walking. Just froze mid-step, one boot raised, one, head tilted. Valya moved beside him immediately, and they started whispering. Fast, urgent. The sound carried across the rocks, not the words, but the tone. Fear. Sarah called for a halt. We all went prone, weapons ready, scanning sectors. My heart was hammering. Something was off. Even I could feel it now. The valley had gone completely silent. No insects, no night birds, no small animals scurrying through the brush. Nothing lived here. What did the hemovariants report? Agent Stone asks. Victor said there were too many. I can still hear his voice, accented and careful. He didn't specify what, just too many. Abnormal distribution pattern. Irregular behavior. Valya wanted to abort. I could tell by the way she was looking at Sarah. But mission parameters didn't include withdrawal protocols for asset anxiety. Tipper's expression doesn't change. The hemovariants have demonstrated previous instances of operational hesitation. Standard threat assessment recalibration. They were right, I interrupt. They smelled what was coming, and you people ignored them because they weren't human enough to matter. Silence. The monitors beside my bed beep steadily. Agent Stone's fingers hover over his tablet. Continue, Tipper says quietly. We moved forward. Sarah overrode Victor's concerns and gave the order. Devin checked his weapon. Travis adjusted his scope. The lichens shifted impatiently, eager to close with whatever enemy was waiting. And Victor looked at me. Just for a moment. Just long enough for me to see the resignation in his eyes. He knew what was coming. We were half a click from the facility when they hit us. The attack came from everywhere and nowhere. One moment we were advancing through a narrow canyon, boots crunching on loose stone. The next moment, the rocks themselves vomited monsters. Vampires. Dozens of them, maybe more. But not like Victor and Valya. These were feral, mindless. Their eyes reflected our weapon lights in flat, dead colors. No intelligence, no strategy, just hunger coded into tissue that refused to die properly. They wore rags that might have been clothing once. Their skin was gray, desiccated, mouths too wide, teeth too long. They didn't move like humans. They scuttled and lunged and crawled, joints bending backward, fingers dragging on stone. Contact! Sarah's voice cut through the night. Defensive formation, engage! Travis dropped the first 3 before they closed distance. Perfect shots, center mass, headshots. But there were so many more behind them, pouring from crevices and overhangs and spaces too small for anything living. I fired. Controlled bursts. Aim, squeeze, move to next target. One feral took rounds through the chest and kept coming. Ribs splintered outward. Organs visible. It didn't care. Pain meant nothing. It just wanted to feed. Devin was beside me, laying down suppression fire. What the hell are these things? Ferals, Sarah shouted back. Silver rounds. Go for the head. But silver rounds don't mean much when the enemy doesn't feel pain. When the enemy doesn't stop unless you destroy the brain or sever the spine. We were good. We'd trained for this scenario. But training doesn't prepare you for the reality of things that should be dead still trying to kill you. Victor and Valya moved like ghosts through the chaos. That's when I understood what they really were. Not just vampires, not just assets, predators. Ancient ones. Victor flowed through the ferals with lethal precision. No wasted motion. He'd grab a head, twist, and move on before the body registered it was dead. Efficient, precise, brutal. Valia was faster, smaller. She went low, hamstringing the ferals, crippling them, leaving them for Victor to finish. They worked together with a synchronization that came from decades, maybe centuries, of partnership. They didn't need words, didn't need signals. The lichens were less elegant, but equally effective. Jimmy caught a feral mid-lunge and tore it apart. Literally. Grabbed it by the spine and pulled until something gave. The feral came apart in his hands, and Jimmy threw the pieces at two more coming up behind. Dio was more surgical. Throat strikes, cervical spine separation. He moved through the ferals with tactical efficiency, each movement flowing into the next. Former SAS training married to lichen strength. He'd probably killed 50 men in his career. These weren't men anymore, but the principle was the same. We held the canyon for 11 minutes. I know because I checked my watch when it was over. 11 minutes of sustained combat against an enemy that shouldn't exist. My rifle was hot enough to burn skin. Devin had gone through 4 magazines. Travis's scope was spattered with blood. He kept trying to wipe it clean between shots. Sarah was still calling coordinates, still trying to maintain tactical cohesion, even as reality collapsed into nightmare. And then, as suddenly as they'd come, the ferals stopped. The few remaining scattered into the rocks. Disappeared. We stood in a canyon littered with bodies that were already decomposing, flesh turning to ash, bones crumbling to dust. Victor and Valia stood apart from us, breathing heavily. Their collars pulsed red in the night. Steady, regular, no threat detected. Casualties? Sarah's voice was steady. None, Travis reported. But we're down to 60% ammunition. Enough to complete the mission. Sarah looked toward the facility, visible now as a form against the mountain. We proceed. Captain. Victor stepped forward. His voice was careful, respectful. This is not normal feral behavior. The distribution pattern, the coordinated attack, something is controlling them, something intelligent. We should call for extraction. Sarah stared at him. Your operational parameters require forward progression to objective completion. Do you understand? Victor's hand moved unconsciously to his collar. The gesture was small, human, defeated. Yes, Captain, I understand. We moved toward the facility. It took another 20 minutes to reach the entrance. The structure squatted against the mountain, all reinforced concrete and no windows. Single entrance, blast door designed to withstand direct artillery strikes. Motion sensors swept overlapping fields of coverage. Thermal cameras tracked heat signatures. It was a fortress designed to keep the world out, or something in. Victor and Valia will maintain perimeter security, Sarah ordered. Hemo variants are most effective in open terrain. The rest of us go inside. Victor looked at me before we entered. His eyes were ancient and sad and knowing. I never saw him alive again. Jimmy, Dio, breached the door. The lichens moved forward. They didn't need explosives. Dio braced against the doorframe, claws extending from his fingertips. Jimmy grabbed the edge of the blast door with both hands. I watched muscles bulge beneath their uniforms, watched tendons stand out. Metal shrieked, hydraulics burst. The door, 3 tons of reinforced steel, tore from its housing and collapsed inward with a sound that echoed through the valley. What happened after breach? Tipper's voice pulls me back to the hospital room, back to the white walls and the beeping monitors and the stumps where my limbs used to be. I don't want to go back there, to that facility, to what we found in the levels below. But they're not asking, they're ordering. And I'm still a soldier, even if I'm missing pieces. We entered the facility at 0347 hours, I say. My mouth is dry. A nurse had come by earlier with water, but I can't reach the cup anymore. Can't reach anything. Sarah took point. Travis behind her, rifle up, scanning corners. Then me. Devin covered our 6. Jimmy and Dio ranged ahead. They didn't need night vision. Their eyes adjusted to the dim emergency lighting instantly. The interior was wrong from the start. Not obviously wrong. Not horror movie wrong. Just off. The kind of off that makes your hindbrain start screaming warnings your conscious mind hasn't processed yet. The facility was modern, I continue. Concrete floors, LED strip lighting running along the baseboards. Climate controlled, maybe 65 degrees. Everything clean, maintained, professional. There were motivational posters on the walls. A coffee station in the first room we cleared. Someone had left a mug with steam still rising from it. Evacuation signatures, Agent Stone says, making notes. Yeah, but not panic, not emergency. It looked like everyone had just stopped what they were doing and walked away. Methodical, orderly, chairs pushed back from desks at precise angles, computer screens glowing with login prompts, a half-eaten sandwich on a break room table, arranged on a napkin with the corners perfectly aligned. Tipper leans forward slightly. You're saying the evacuation appeared coordinated. I'm saying it didn't look like an evacuation at all. It looked like everyone was called to a meeting and they'd be right back. We cleared the first level in 12 minutes. Standard room clearing protocols. Jimmy would breach, Dio would flow in behind him. Travis would provide overwatch. Devin and I would secure. Sarah would coordinate. Every room was empty. Every room was pristine. Every room made less sense than the last. There was a laboratory on the first sublevel, I say. Looked like genetics research. Microscopes, centrifuges, refrigeration units with biohazard symbols. Devin checked the computers. Still powered, still running analysis protocols. Whatever research they were doing, they'd left it mid-process. Did you access the research data? Tipper asks. Devin tried. Everything was encrypted. Military grade. He said it would take weeks to crack and we had maybe 3 hours before sunrise made exfil impossible. I pause. But he did find something. File names. Project designations. Most were redacted, but one kept appearing. Chaoticus. The name hangs in the air between us. Tipper and Agent Stone exchange a glance. Brief. Meaningful. They know that name. They knew it before they walked into this room. You knew, I say quietly. You knew what we'd find down there. Continue with your report, Sergeant, Tipper says. His tone hasn't changed, but something in his posture has. A tension that wasn't there before. We descended to the second sublevel. The architecture changed, less modern. Older concrete. The walls showed stress fractures, hairline cracks that shouldn't exist in a facility this well maintained. The temperature dropped another 5 degrees. That's when Jimmy started acting different, I say. He kept pausing, tilting his head, sniffing the air. Dio noticed it too. They were communicating in that way lichens do. Not words, just body language, pack language. What were they sensing? Agent Stone asks. They wouldn't say, not clearly. Jimmy just kept saying, too many. Same thing Victor had said topside. Too many what? Too many scents? Too many heat signatures? He couldn't articulate it, or wouldn't. The third sublevel was where everything went from wrong to nightmare. The elevator shaft, manual access only. The car was locked at the bottom, controls disabled. Sarah ordered Devin to plant breaching charges on the cable. The explosion echoed through the shaft, a sound that seemed to go on forever, bouncing off walls that shouldn't exist. We rappelled down, 100 feet, then another 100. The shaft kept going, burrowed into bedrock that predated the facility by millennia. Our headlamps couldn't penetrate the void below. We descended into pure absence. When we finally touched bottom, everything changed. The walls weren't concrete anymore, I tell Tipper and Stone. They were stone, ancient stone, hand-carved. There were symbols, pictographs maybe, or something older. They hurt to look at. Made your eyes water, made your head ache. Devin tried to photograph them with his tactical camera. The images came out blurred, static, like the symbols rejected being recorded. Describe the symbols, Tipper says. I can't. Not because I don't remember. Because they don't translate into words. Geometric patterns that folded in on themselves. Curves that shouldn't connect but did. Looking at them made you feel observed. Like the walls were watching us watch them. Travis had started breathing faster. Controlled, but faster. Combat stress, maybe. Or recognition of something his hindbrain understood but his conscious mind refused to process. This isn't uranium enrichment, he said. His voice was flat, professional, but I could hear the edge underneath. This is something else. We proceed, Sarah said. Mission objective. Identify the facility's true purpose and neutralize any threats. "Captain, we should call this in," Devon said. "Whatever this is, we proceed." So we proceeded. The corridor spiraled downward, a slow, deliberate curve that made mapping impossible. Distance became meaningless. We walked for 5 minutes, 10, 15. The stone walls continued, unbroken. The temperature kept dropping. Our breath misted in the air, crystallizing on our equipment. Jimmy stopped walking. Just stopped, mid-stride. Dio stopped beside him. They were both staring ahead into the spiral. Their eyes had shifted, not full transformation, but the pupils had elongated. Predator eyes. "Something's ahead," Jimmy said. "Something big." "Define big," Sarah said. "Can't. It's... The scent is everywhere. It's not moving toward us, it's just... present. Like it's always been there, like it's waiting." "For what?" Jimmy looked at her. His expression was naked fear wrapped in a soldier's discipline. "For us." We continued anyway. Because we were professionals. Because we followed orders. Because turning back would mean admitting that the monsters we controlled weren't the scariest things in this facility. The spiral ended at a chamber. I can still see it. Behind my eyelids. In my dreams. In every moment when I'm not focused on something else. The chamber is always there. Waiting. "It was massive," I say. My voice has dropped to almost a whisper. The monitors beside my bed beep faster. Maybe 200 feet across. Circular. The ceiling was lost in shadow. Our lights couldn't reach it. The walls were covered in those symbols. Thousands of them. Overlapping and intersecting. And in the center, I have to stop. Have to breathe. The morphine isn't helping anymore. Nothing helps. In the center were people. Maybe 40 of them. Scientists in lab coats. Soldiers in desert camouflage. All standing in a perfect circle, facing inward. Eyes open. Breathing. But not alive. Not really. They were shells. Puppets. Their eyes tracked us when we entered. But there was nothing behind them. No recognition. No fear. No humanity. And in the center of their circle, Tipper prompts, a man. Suspended 3 feet off the ground. Surrounded by machinery that shouldn't exist. Processors and electrodes and tubes pumping something that glowed faintly in the shadows. His skin was translucent. I could see his organs underneath, but they were arranged wrong. His heart was on the right side. His lungs moved in opposite rhythm, one inflating while the other deflated. Veins glowed with something that wasn't blood. Chaoticus, though we didn't know his name yet. He was smiling, I continue. Just smiling. Like he'd been waiting for us. Like our arrival was exactly what he'd planned. Sarah raised her weapon. "Identify yourself." The man's smile widened, and every person in the circle turned to face us in perfect unison. "Contact," Sarah said into her radio. "Unknown entity, center chamber. Request immediate extraction and..." The man spoke. Not with his mouth. His mouth didn't move. The words just appeared in our heads, in our skulls, behind our eyes. "You came. How delightful. How perfectly, wonderfully predictable." Travis fired. 3 rounds. Center mass. The bullets stopped in midair, suspended 6 inches from the man's chest. They hung there, rotating slowly, before dropping to the floor with sounds like bells. "Weapons free!" Sarah shouted. "Engage!" We all fired. Devon, me, Sarah, full automatic. Dozens of rounds. They all stopped. All hung suspended. All fell uselessly to the stone floor. The sound was deafening. Gunfire echoing off ancient walls, brass casings hitting stone, and underneath it all, the man's laughter. Not spoken, just present, vibrating through our bones. "Did they not tell you? Did your masters not explain what they created?" One of the soldiers in the circle lurched forward, moved like a marionette with half its strings cut. He had a sidearm. He raised it, aimed at Devon. Devon tried to dodge. The soldier fired. Devon went down, clutching his shoulder, blood between his fingers. Too much blood. "Devon!" I moved toward him. Another person from the circle attacked. A scientist. Female. Lab coat covered in symbols that matched the walls. She moved with inhuman speed, fingers extended like claws. Sarah shot her. 3 rounds through the chest, The woman staggered but kept coming. Jimmy intercepted her, grabbed her by the throat and snapped her neck with one motion. The woman collapsed, but 3 more were already moving. Then 5, then 10. The man, Chaoticus, floated higher. The machinery around him sparked and whined. I was made in a laboratory, American laboratory, funded by your government, built from pieces of things they hunted and captured and dissected. Vampire DNA, lichen genetic material, other things, darker things, things with names you don't have words for. They stitched me together and expected me to be grateful, expected me to serve. The possessed people attacked in waves. No coordination, no strategy, just raw violence. Travis was backing toward the entrance, firing controlled pairs. Sarah was screaming into her radio, calling for backup that would never arrive in time. Devon was on the ground, bleeding out, trying to apply pressure with one hand while the other scrabbled for his sidearm. Jimmy and Dio had partially shifted, claws extended, teeth elongated. They were tearing through the possessed with brutal efficiency. But there were so many. And they kept coming, kept attacking. Even after their bodies were destroyed, they'd crawl. They'd drag themselves forward with broken limbs. I learned, in that laboratory, I learned what I was, what I could become. And I learned about you, about humanity, about your endless capacity for violence dressed up as righteousness. So I waited. I grew stronger. And when they moved me here, to this old place, this sacred place, I found something they didn't know existed. The chamber shuddered. Stone dust fell from the ceiling we couldn't see. Power. Ancient power. Older than your species. Older than the things you hunt and collar and weaponize. And now... Chaoticus spread his arms. The electrodes tore free. The tubes burst. The machinery exploded in showers of sparks. Now I'm free. That's when Victor and Valia came through the entrance. They'd heard the fighting, abandoned their post, disobeyed direct orders. They came because soldiers were dying, and they were still soldiers. Collars or no collars. Victor moved with lethal precision. He tore through the possessed with efficiency born from centuries of combat. Valia was right behind him, smaller, faster, a blur of motion. For a moment, just a moment, I thought we might actually survive. Then Chaoticus looked at them. Just looked. Victor froze mid-strike. Valia stopped beside him. They hung in the air, lifted by invisible force, bodies rigid, paralyzed. Hemovariants. How quaint. You think you're predators? You think 3 centuries makes you dangerous? I could see Victor struggling, every muscle straining, every tendon standing out. But he couldn't move, couldn't even speak. Let me show you what real power looks like. Victor's bones started breaking, not quickly, slowly, methodically. Each bone snapping one at a time. Ribs, femurs, radius, and ulna. I could hear them breaking, could see Victor's face contorting in agony. He couldn't scream, his lungs were paralyzed. He could only endure. Valia was next. Same process, same methodical destruction. Her spine fractured in 3 places, her legs bent backward at the knees. Wrong angles, impossible angles. "Stop!" Sarah was screaming. "Release them!" But Chaoticus wasn't listening. Or maybe he was listening and didn't care. Sarah reached for the remote, the collar controls. She pressed the emergency release, trying to free them, trying to give them a chance to escape. But Chaoticus was faster. The collars activated simultaneously. UV lasers fired. Victor's and Valia's heads separated from their bodies while they were still floating, while their bones were still breaking. The bodies dropped. The heads rolled across the stone floor, eyes still open, still aware, until the vampiric regeneration finally failed, and they turned to ash. I wanted to vomit, wanted to close my eyes, wanted to wake up and discover this was just another nightmare. But it was real. All of it was real. Jimmy roared. Not human, not rational, pure rage. He went full transformation. Consequences be damned. The full moon was 2 weeks away, but he forced the change anyway. Bones cracked, muscles expanded, fur erupted from skin. He became the wolf, 8 feet of muscle and fangs and claws and fury. He charged Chaoticus. Chaoticus smiled, and then he looked up, through hundreds of feet of stone and earth, through the mountain itself, and the ceiling began to crack. "No," Sarah whispered. The stone above us shattered, not gradually, all at once. Tons of rock and earth vanished, not exploded, just ceased to exist. And above us, impossibly, was the night sky. Stars, clear and bright and beautiful. And the moon, full, perfect, luminous. But it was wrong. It was still 2 weeks until the full moon. The astronomical calendar didn't lie. But there it was, hanging in the sky like an accusation. Dio started screaming. Human screams. Terror and rage and denial. Because he knew what was about to happen. What was already happening. The transformation took him. Not the controlled partial shift he'd been maintaining. The full change. Involuntary. Violent. His body tore itself apart and rebuilt itself into something else. Something that couldn't think. Couldn't reason. Could only hunt. 2 werewolves now. Jimmy and Dio. Both fully transformed. Both completely mindless. And we were trapped in a chamber with them. Jimmy went for Chaoticus first, leaped with claws extended, but Chaoticus just gestured, and Jimmy changed trajectory mid-air, slammed into the wall. Stone cracked. Jimmy fell, stunned. Dio had chosen a different target, closer, easier. Travis. The werewolf hit Travis with devastating force. One swipe of those massive claws and Travis was down, chest opened, ribs visible. He tried to raise his rifle. Dio's jaws closed around his head. The crunch was sickening. Final. Travis's body convulsed once and went still. "Fall back!" Sarah was pulling Devin toward the entrance. "Harvey, move!" I moved, started running, but Dio was faster. He caught me 3 steps from the doorway, grabbed my leg, my left leg, and pulled. I felt teeth, felt pressure, felt something give. Then pain. Transcendent, all-consuming pain. My leg came off at the mid-thigh. Just tore away. Dio was holding it, and I was on the ground watching my life pump out in arterial sprays. Devin was there suddenly, firing his sidearm. One-handed, wounded, but still fighting. "Get up! Get up, Harvey!" I tried. Couldn't. Too much blood loss. Too much shock. The world was going gray at the edges. Jimmy had recovered. Was coming for us now. Both werewolves, converging. Sarah was screaming into her radio. Devin was trying to drag me, and Chaoticus was just floating there, watching, smiling. This is what you are. This is what you've always been. Meat and fear and violence. I'm going to show the whole world. I'm going to set it all free. Devin got me to the corridor, started pulling me toward the elevator shaft. My blood left a trail on the ancient stone. I kept thinking about Victor, about how he'd tried to warn us, about how he'd disobeyed orders to try to save us, about how he'd died for nothing. Jimmy caught Devin, grabbed him by the shoulder and threw him. Devin hit the wall. Bones broke. I heard them snap. He slid down, leaving a red smear. Tried to stand. Couldn't. The werewolf came for him. Devin pulled a grenade. His last one. Emergency reserve. He was looking at me. Our eyes met, and I knew what he was going to do. "Get out of here," he said. Blood bubbled from his lips. Tell them we tried." "Devin." "No." He pulled the pin. The explosion was deafening in the enclosed space. The werewolf, Jimmy, was caught in the blast, thrown backward into Chaoticus's range. Not killed, werewolves are hard to kill, but stunned, damaged. Chaoticus gestured. Jimmy froze in midair, just like the vampires had. And just like the vampires, he started breaking. Bones snapping, body contorting, but Chaoticus didn't need any collar. He just kept breaking Jimmy until there was nothing left that could be called alive. Devin was dead. Most of him vaporized in the blast. What remained wasn't worth recovering. Sarah had me, was dragging me. My shoulder scraped against stone. My stump left a trail. Dio was behind us. I could hear his claws on the stone, could hear his breathing. Sarah pulled something from her vest, a syringe, auto-injector. She jammed it into my thigh, my remaining thigh. Combat stimulant, stay awake, stay with me. The drug hit my system like lightning. Suddenly I could think, could move, could feel everything in high-definition agony. I grabbed onto the elevator cable, started pulling myself up, hand over hand. Sarah was below me, laying down covering fire at Dio. The werewolf didn't care. Bullets meant nothing. He kept coming. Sarah made a decision. I could see it in her eyes. She grabbed another grenade, her last one, pulled the pin. "Go!" she screamed at me. "Captain! That's an order, Sergeant!" I climbed, faster. My arms were burning, my stump was bleeding, but I climbed. Below me, Sarah held the grenade. Dio reached her. She shoved it into his mouth. The explosion took them both. I kept climbing. Hand over hand. The stimulant was the only thing keeping me conscious. I could hear Chaoticus below, his voice in my head, laughing. "Run, little soldier. Run and tell your masters what's coming. Tell them I'm free. Tell them the age of human dominion is over. Tell them chaos is coming." I reached the first level, pulled myself onto solid ground. My vision was tunneling. The stimulant was wearing off. Blood loss catching up. Through the breach in the mountain, I could see him. Chaoticus, rising through the hole he'd made. Not flying, just ascending. As if gravity was a suggestion he'd chosen to ignore. The machinery had fallen away. The tubes and electrodes lay scattered below. He was free. Unbound. Terrible. He rose into the night sky, framed against that impossible full moon. And as I watched, struggling to stay conscious, he spread his arms wide. The air around him distorted, rippled. Reality bent. And then he was gone. Not invisible, just gone. Translated to somewhere else. Somewhere we couldn't follow. Facility security found me maybe 30 seconds later. I don't remember much after that. Hands lifting me, voices shouting medical terminology, the roar of a helicopter, the sting of needles as they tried to stabilize me for transport. I remember looking back at the facility as we lifted off, seeing the massive hole torn through the mountain, seeing smoke rising from the lower levels, seeing nothing moving down there at all. Everyone was dead. Victor, Valia, Travis, Devin, Sarah, Jimmy, Dio. 8 people went into that facility. 1 came out. And the thing we'd found, the thing we'd released, was out there somewhere, free, powerful, angry. The helicopter's engine noise faded as shock and blood loss finally overwhelmed the combat stimulant. The last thing I remember before losing consciousness was looking down at my body, at the tourniquet someone had applied to my leg stump, at my right arm, or what was left of it. Gone from the elbow down, though I couldn't remember that injury happening. I'd lost pieces of myself in that facility. Parts of my body, yes. But also something else. Something more fundamental. The part that believed we were in control. The part that believed we understood what we were fighting. The part that believed we could win. Chaoticus had taken all of that, and he wasn't done taking. The darkness came for me then. Merciful. Complete. I welcomed it. I wake up screaming. Or trying to scream. My throat is raw, damaged. The sound that comes out is more animal than human. A ragged, broken thing that makes the monitors beside my bed shriek warnings. Nurses rush in, hands on my shoulders, holding me down. A voice saying, "You're safe, Sergeant." But I'm not safe. None of us are safe. The sedatives hit my IV line, chemical warmth spreading through my veins. The panic recedes, replaced by artificial calm. But I can still see it. Behind my eyelids. The chamber. The floating man. Victor's bones breaking. The impossible moon. Chaoticus. Tipper and Agent Stone are back. Standing at the foot of my bed. Waiting. "Welcome back, Sergeant," Tipper says. His voice is careful, measured. "You've been out for 36 hours. We had to keep you sedated. The combat stimulant was causing complications. Cardiac arrhythmia. Seizures." I try to speak. My mouth is dry. A nurse appears with water, holds the straw to my lips. I drink. It hurts going down. My team, I manage to croak out. Did anyone else? You were the only survivor, Agent Stone says. No preamble, no softening. Captain Barden, Lieutenant Strong, Corporal Harkonnen, assets Victor, Valya, Jimmy, and Dio, all KIA, bodies recovered where possible. The assets. He pauses. There wasn't enough left to recover. I already knew. Had known since the moment Chaoticus broke them, but hearing it confirmed makes it real. 7 people dead. 7 soldiers who trusted their orders, trusted their mission. All of them gone. And I'm here. Missing a leg. Missing an arm. But alive. Why did he let me live? Tipper exchanges a glance with Agent Stone. Then he pulls out a tablet. Turns it toward me. The first image is New York City. Or what used to be. Manhattan is a crater. Buildings collapsed inward, as if something had reached down from the sky and compressed them. The bridges are twisted metal sculptures, and in the center, a perfect circle of devastation. This happened 18 hours after your extraction, Tipper says. Or 900 hours Eastern Time, rush hour. 8.2 million people in the immediate blast radius. He swipes to the next image, Tokyo. The skyline I recognize from movies is gone, replaced by a landscape of ruin. The destruction follows the same pattern. Buildings compressed, streets cratered. 6 hours after New York, Tokyo. 14 million in the blast radius. Another swipe. London. The Thames is a dry scar through the city. Big Ben is a pile of clockwork and stone. 4 hours after Tokyo. Mumbai, Sao Paulo. Each image worse than the last. Each city reduced to the same pattern of devastation. 72 hours, Agent Stone says. 5 cities. Current casualty estimates are 43 million confirmed dead. Another 60 million missing, presumed dead. Infrastructure collapse, secondary casualties, refugees. The numbers keep climbing. I can't process those numbers. They're too large, too abstract. All I can see is Victor's face as his bones broke. All I can hear is Devon's last words. Tell them we tried. He's broadcasting, Tipper continues. Telepathically, to anyone within his range. He calls himself Chaoticus. He says he's here to liberate humanity from order, from structure. Chaos is the natural state of the universe, and we've been fighting it for too long. That's insane, I whisper. Yes, but people are listening. Thousands have abandoned their lives to follow him. They call themselves the Unbound. They're destroying infrastructure, attacking government installations, and his power is growing. Our analysts believe he's drawing energy from the destruction itself. Each city he destroys makes him stronger. How do you stop something like that? I ask. But I already know the answer. Tipper sets the tablet down, pulls a chair closer. We can't. Not with conventional means. We've attempted engagement twice. Joint military operations. The best special forces units from 6 nations. They couldn't get within a quarter mile. He creates zones of pure telekinetic force. He's not invincible, Agent Stone adds. Our analysts believe he has limits. Energy expenditure, recovery time. He waits several hours between attacks. But we can't exploit that weakness because we don't have anything that can touch him. Tipper leans forward. Except you. I'm missing a leg and an arm, I say. How am I supposed to fight a god? By becoming something that can. Tipper's expression is grave. We have a program, Prometheus. It's been in development for 8 years, running parallel to Black Salomon. Enhancement, integration, taking human soldiers and making them more. Agent Stone takes over. The program combines multiple elements. Genetic engineering using DNA from enhanced assets. Cybernetic augmentation. Neural conditioning. Psychic shielding. We've had limited success with volunteers, but none approach the theoretical maximum. Why not? Because we were missing crucial components. Combat experience with enhanced assets. Understanding of how they think, how they move, and psychological compatibility. Someone who's been through enough trauma to accept the transformation without psychological collapse. Tipper's eyes meet mine. You're the perfect candidate, Sergeant Gudson. You've worked with vampires and werewolves for 2 years. You've engaged Chaoticus directly and survived. And you have motivation. 7 dead teammates and 43 million dead civilians. I look down at my body, at the stumps wrapped in bandages. What exactly would you do to me? Agent Stone pulls up schematics, medical diagrams that look more like science fiction. Phase 1 rebuilds your lost limbs using advanced prosthetics integrated directly into your nervous system. Not just replacement, enhancement, strength amplification, reinforced skeletal structure, enhanced reflexes. Phase 2 introduces genetic components. From Victor and Valia, vampire DNA that grants enhanced healing, sensory acuity, and resistance to pain. From Jimmy and Dio, werewolf DNA that provides increased muscle density and predatory instincts. Phase 3 is neural augmentation, cybernetic components that interface with your brain, enhanced processing speed, tactical analysis, and most importantly, psychic shielding. Based on what we learned from studying Chaoticus's containment chamber, we believe we can protect your mind from his telepathic attacks. Tipper stands. The process takes 6 weeks. Surgery, gene therapy, conditioning, and recovery. It's dangerous. The mortality rate for previous candidates was 63%. But if you survive, you'll be the most advanced combat asset humanity has ever produced. And then what? You send me after Chaoticus? Not alone, Agent Stone says. You'd lead a team. We're preparing additional candidates. But you'd be the primary operator. I close my eyes. My mind keeps returning to the chamber. To Victor holding his ground. To Devon pulling that grenade pin. To Sarah ordering me to climb while she bought me time. They didn't die for nothing. What if I say no? Silence. Long enough that I open my eyes. Then we move to our secondary candidate, Tipper says. A Marine lieutenant named Straight, good soldier. But she's never worked with enhanced assets. Never engaged a psychic threat. Her chances are significantly lower. And if she fails? Then we try again, until either we succeed or there's no one left to protect. Agent Stone moves closer. Sergeant, in the time we've been talking, Chaoticus has been active. Reports from Moscow. Same pattern, same devastation. That's 6 cities in 96 hours. At this rate, he'll have destroyed every major population center within 3 months. 3 months until civilization ends. I think about Victor again, about what he'd said after Detroit, waiting for extraction in an abandoned warehouse while rain hammered the roof. We are all slaves to something, Sergeant. The question is whether we choose our chains. Victor had chosen to serve despite the collar. Despite knowing he was seen as a weapon rather than a soldier, he'd chosen to fight because the alternative was accepting helplessness. Devon had chosen too. In that final moment, he'd chosen to buy me time. Sarah, Travis, Jimmy, Dio. All of them had made choices, and now it's my turn. The moral calculus is simple and terrible. Do I preserve my humanity and watch the world burn? Or do I sacrifice what's left of myself for a chance to stop him? I need to know something first, I say. Chaoticus told me he was created in an American laboratory. Is that true? Tipper doesn't flinch. Yes. Was it Black Salomon? No. A precursor program, Pandora. It ran from 2015 to 2019. The goal was to create a soldier with enhanced psychic abilities. Multiple attempts failed. Chaoticus, we knew him as Subject 17, was the only viable product. But he was unstable, violent, impossible to control. So you locked him away. We contained him in a secure location while we studied his capabilities. The facility in Iran was chosen because it was remote and built on a site with natural psychic dampening properties. Except it didn't work, I say. Now millions are dead because you couldn't control your own weapon. Tipper's jaw tightens. Yes, we failed. And now we're asking you to trust us to succeed where we failed before. Do you understand what you're asking? You want me to become a monster, to fight a monster. Yes, Tipper says simply. No justification, no apology. That's exactly what we're asking. The monitors beep steadily. I think about the devastation. 43 million dead, 60 million missing. But I also think about specific faces. Victor and Valya turned to ash. 7 members of my team dead because they followed orders. If I say yes, I become complicit. If I say no, I abandon everyone still alive. Victor's words echo. We are all slaves to something. The question is whether we choose our chains. Tell me about the other candidates, the ones who died. Agent Stone pulls up files. Rejection of the genetic material. Adverse reactions to the neural implants. Psychological collapse during conditioning. The psychic shielding. We've only successfully installed it in 3 candidates. 2 died during activation. The 3rd survived but is permanently catatonic. So my odds are 37%? Yes, but you have advantages. Combat experience. Mental resilience. And you've been exposed to Chaoticus's psychic field and survived. Your brain has already adapted to psychic trauma. That might improve your compatibility. Might. Such a small word for such a large gamble. And if I survive? What then? We deploy you against Chaoticus. You engage him, attempt to neutralize him, and hopefully prevent further loss of life. And afterward? Tipper and Stone exchange another look. Finally, Tipper speaks. Honestly, we don't know. Prometheus was designed for a specific threat scenario. You'd be the first. So I might spend the rest of my life as a government asset. Another pet, like Victor and Valya. Possibly. Or we might find a way to partially reverse the modifications. The future is undefined. At least he's being honest. No promises, no guarantees. The TV mounted on the wall flickers to life. The news is showing footage from Moscow. The same devastation pattern. Reporters speaking in rapid Russian. But the images need no translation. 7 cities now. 7 mass graves containing millions who woke up that morning thinking they were safe. I watch a woman on screen, crying over rubble. She's holding a photograph. The morphine fog in my head is clearing. The pain is coming back. Phantom limb agony. But underneath is something else. Something colder. Anger. Not at Tipper or Agent Stone or the bureaucrats who built this nightmare. Anger at Chaoticus. At the thing that decided its pain gave it the right to inflict pain on millions. He let me live so I could deliver his message, so I could spread fear. But he made a mistake. The process, I say. How soon can you start? Tipper's expression doesn't change, but I see relief in his eyes. We have a facility prepared. We can begin transport within the hour. I look down at my body one more time, at what remains of Sergeant Harvey Goodson. In a few hours, they'll start transforming me into something else. Something that might not be human when it's done. But Victor wasn't human. Valya wasn't human. Jimmy and Dio weren't human. And they'd all been better soldiers than most humans I'd served with. They'd all chosen to fight despite what they were. Maybe humanity isn't about biology. Maybe it's about choices. About deciding to stand against the night even when you know you're going to lose. Maybe that's what Victor meant about choosing your chains. One condition, I say. When this is over, if I survive, I want full disclosure. Every file, every secret, everything Black Salomon and Pandora and Prometheus have done. All of it. That's highly classified, Agent Stone begins. I don't care. If you want me to become your weapon, that's the price. Transparency, truth. If I'm going to carry the weight of what you're asking, I deserve to know exactly what I'm dying for. Tipper considers this, nods slowly. Agreed. If you survive, you'll have access to everything. Put it in writing. We will. I take a deep breath. It hurts. My ribs are still damaged, but the pain feels clarifying. A reminder that I'm still alive, still human for a few more hours. Then let's do it, I say. Turn me into whatever you need me to be. Because Chaoticus is wrong. Chaos isn't liberation. It's just another form of slavery, and someone needs to stand against it. Tipper stands, extends his hand, then realizes I can't shake it. He lowers his hand. Thank you, Sergeant. You're giving humanity a chance we don't deserve. I'm not doing this for humanity, I say quietly. I'm doing it for 7 dead soldiers who deserved better. and for all the people in those cities who deserved better than to die for a madman's ideology. Agent Stone is already on his phone, arranging transport, setting in motion the machinery that will dismantle Harvey Gudson and rebuild him as something new. I lean back and close my eyes, try to remember what Victor looked like before the collar, what Devon sounded like when he laughed, what Sarah's expression was when she gave orders. Try to remember them as people, not casualties. Because in a few weeks, I might not remember what it means to be a person at all. A nurse enters to prep me for transport. She's efficient, professional, but I can see the fear in her eyes. It's going to be okay, I tell her. Not because I believe it, but because someone needs to say it. She pauses, looks at me. Recognition there. Thank you, she whispers. They transfer me carefully. Every movement sends fresh agony through my body, but I don't complain. This pain is temporary. As they wheel me through the hospital corridors, I catch glimpses of other rooms, other patients, normal people with normal injuries, broken bones that will heal, illnesses that can be treated. They don't know the world is ending. Or maybe they do, and they're choosing to focus on what they can control. Choosing hope over despair. Maybe that's the most human thing of all. The ambulance is waiting. Black, unmarked. Tipper and Agent Stone follow in a separate car. Security detail ahead and behind. I'm too valuable now. The last hope for a species running out of time. As we pull away, I crane my neck to look out the window. The city looks normal. People walking, cars in traffic, life continuing. Or maybe they know and they're living anyway, choosing defiance over surrender. I close my eyes, but behind my eyelids, I still see the chamber. Still see Victor's broken body. Still see Devon's sacrifice. Still see Chaoticus floating, smiling, spreading his arms. In 6 weeks, I'll face him again. Either as humanity's salvation, or its final failure. Either as the weapon that stops him, or another casualty in his war against order. Either way, Sergeant Harvey Gudson dies today. In that hospital room. In this ambulance. In the moment I chose to fight back. What emerges from Prometheus won't be him. Won't be human. Will be something new. Something designed for a single purpose. To end the chaos or die trying. Victor had it right. We're all slaves to something. The question is whether we choose our chains. I've made my choice. Now I just have to live long enough to see if it matters. The ambulance turns onto a highway, speeds up, racing toward whatever facility holds the Prometheus program, racing toward transformation. I think about Devon one more time, about his last words. Tell them we tried. I'm still trying, I whisper to his ghost. I'm still trying. Outside the windows, the world continues, unknowing, unprepared, waiting for salvation or destruction, and I'm about to find out which one I'll become.